What's going on, guys? Thanks for watching. Keep calm and game on. We are back reacting to another White House press briefing with Karoline Leavitt. We're going to hit the play button. I do have a new headset plugged in. I don't know if the mic is better than my last headset. It's probably worse, but we're going to find out. But yeah, we're going to hit the play button and see what she has to say. So let's go.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? It's a newsy day indeed. And last night we saw the very best of America. After spending nearly 300 days aboard the International Space Station, Butch Wilmore and Sunny Williams are back on Earth.
Yeah, buddy.
These two incredible astronauts were
Got
only
the astronauts
supposed to be
back
up there for 8 days. But because of the Biden administration's lack of urgency, they ended up spending 9 months in space.
We got him back, though. We got him back now.
Joe Biden's lack of courage to act boldly and decisively was a big reason why Butch and Sunny did not make it back until yesterday. But President Trump doesn't waste time. Immediately,
we don't waste time, boys.
Office,
we don't waste time. No.
Elon Musk and SpaceX to rescue these brave astronauts alongside NASA. The president also called the acting administrator of NASA and told her to bring the astronauts home as soon as possible. As acting administrator Janet Petro said herself yesterday, per President Trump's direction, NASA and SpaceX worked diligently to pull the schedule a month earlier. The president looks forward to welcoming Butch and Sunny to the Oval Office when they are recovered. This historic mission brings new meaning to President Trump's promise to always look out for the forgotten man and woman. On another important matter, yesterday, President Trump and President Putin spoke about the need for peace and a ceasefire in the Ukraine war. Both leaders agreed this conflict needs to end with a lasting peace and also stressed the need for improved bilateral relations between the United States and Russia. President Trump spoke with President Zelensky this morning to align both Russia and Ukraine in terms of their needs and requests. As President Trump has said repeatedly, the precious lives and money that both Ukraine and Russia have been spending in this war would be better spent on the needs of their people. This terrible conflict would have never started with President Trump in charge, but he's determined to end it once and for all. President Trump also promised maximum transparency and a commitment to rebuild the trust of the American people and our intelligence community. Part of that promise was to fully release previously classified records related to the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy, and he made that happen yesterday. This historic release consisted of approximately 80,000 pages of previously classified records that
basically,
are now published.
I don't know what's happening yet because we just started the press briefing. They're talking about the astronauts right now.
Accessible to the American people at the National Archives in College Park, Maryland.
Talk about the astronauts that we got back.
Available for in-person viewing are being digitized and will be uploaded in the coming days. On another note, positive economic data continues to pour in, showing the immediate impact of President Trump's pro-growth agenda. After suffering a steep decline in the final year of the Biden administration, the manufacturing sector came roaring back in February. Industrial production surged in February. These are new numbers.
She's just kind of going over things that are going on at the moment.
Expectations to its highest ever recorded level. And President Trump's laser focus on massive deregulation and unleashing our domestic energy industry is leading to stabilities for Americans' bottom lines. As Newsweek summed it up today, gas prices are plummeting under President Trump. And the Trump administration continues to make American communities safer through our ongoing
I don't know. It's about the same here in Idaho.
Illegal alien criminals.
I feel like it's actually gone up a little bit here in Idaho.
Patel announced the agency captured another fugitive from its 10 most wanted list, securing the extradition of Francisco Javier Roman Bardeles, a key senior leader of the brutal MS-13.
We got another guy.
And the brave men and women of ICE also arrested a number of dangerous aliens across the country in recent days. You will see them on this screen. ICE San Francisco just arrested a citizen of Guatemala convicted of sexual battery.
We got another one, boys.
ICE New Orleans arrested a citizen of Ecuador convicted of rape.
In California?
In Suffolk County,
I'm not sure. I know it's been
Atlanta
pretty pricey in California.
Mexico,
well, it's definitely more expensive in California than it is here in Idaho.
Arrested a citizen of Mexico
but I'm sure it has
convicted of
probably
assault
dropped
with a
quite a
firearm
bit.
And rape with a foreign object.
It's kind
In
of stayed
Ice,
about the
Houston
same here in
arrested a
Idaho,
citizen of
around
Guatemala
$3 and like
convicted of
30
indecent
cents,
sexual
320,
contact with a
330.
child in Texas. These are heinous, criminal, alien monsters who the previous administration allowed to flood into our
But
country.
yeah,
And every time President Trump
does
and
seem
his
like
team
it's
deport one
dropping.
of them, our country becomes safer. Finally, before I open it up to questions, I want to tout how successful our efforts have been in filling out President Trump's administration. There have been a record number of
I lost my little
281 Senate
puffball.
confirmed nominations already, with another 280 in process. Here at the White House, OPM, and GSA, we have filled 100% of the total number of slots. And this is a record number of placements in the first 58 days
Record
of
number,
any
boys.
administration, and a testament to the caliber and the sheer quantity of talented people who want to work for President Trump to make America great
Everybody
again.
wants to make
Here
America
in our
great
new
again.
media
Everybody
seat today,
wants
we
to
have
get hired.
Katie Pavlich. Katie is the editor of townhall.com, which is a subsidiary of Town Hall Media. It's a leading conservative news and opinion outlet based right here in Washington, D.C., with writers and journalists reporting around the country. Last year, Town Hall Media had 60 million unique users and 1.4 billion page views, with a broad reach on a number of social media platforms. With that, Katie, please kick us off.
Thank you, Caroline. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you. So given the back and forth with this U.S. District Judge and the administration's use
It says
of
in
the
California
Alien
the
Act,
gas
does the president
prices are
plan to
around
send
$4.65.
new and additional flights of Venezuelan gang members, now designated as foreign terrorists, from the U.S. to El Salvador or elsewhere? Can Americans expect to see those flights sometime soon?
Americans can absolutely expect to see the continuation of the mass deportation campaign that has been successfully led by this president, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and also our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Since you brought up
Nice.
the judges,
Well, I'm glad
I
you
would like
decided to
point
pop in,
out,
man.
that the judges
Appreciate
in
it.
this country
Hope you subscribe.
are acting erroneously. We have judges who are
This is
acting
typically
as
a
partisan
gaming channel, but I
activists
also do like
from the
political
bench.
stuff
They are
too.
trying to
I like
dictate
watching what's going on in the
policy from
news,
the President of the United
seeing what's
States.
happening
They are
around
trying
the
to
world.
clearly slow walk
So it's a little bit
this
half and half.
administration's agenda.
Gaming
and it's
and,
unacceptable. As the president said last night, we
like
will
political
continue
stuff.
to comply with these court orders. We will continue to fight these battles in courts. But it's incredibly apparent that there is a concerted effort by the far left to judge shop, to pick judges who are clearly
Yeah, I don't know what's
acting
going
as
on with these
partisan
judges.
activists from the bench in an attempt to derail this president's
Like we
agenda. We will
shipped
not
a
allow
bunch
that to
of
happen. And not only are they usurping
criminals
the will
over
of the president
to
and the chief executive of our
where
country,
was it? Some
but they
prison
are
that's
undermining
outside of
the
our
will
country.
the American
And the judge is
public.
like, you
Tens
can't do
of
that.
millions
Send
of
them all back.
Americans
I'm
who
like,
duly
yo.
elected this president to implement the policies that are coming out of this White House.
And then one more question. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said yesterday that he was united with Democrats in working against Americans who, quote, their attitude is, I made my money all by myself. How dare your government take my money from me? Or I built my company with my bare hands. How dare your government tell me how to treat my customers? What is the president's response to this, given his upcoming tax
That was a
agenda
big
and
camera
need
there,
to work
buddy.
on Capitol Hill?
Well, we certainly hope that Democrats all of a sudden are for more money in the pockets of the American public. The president has made it incredibly clear that he is committed to tax cuts. He is committed to passing a big reconciliation package later this year, ending no taxes on tips, taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security for our hardworking seniors. And we encourage everybody on Capitol Hill to support that when it comes to the finish line, especially Democrats who clearly need a boost from the American public right now. Their approvals are at an all-time record low. Thanks for being with us, Katie. Garrett.
I have one other question, but I want to follow up on Katie's question. Actually, you said the mass deportation campaign would continue, but she asked about the flights specifically. Will those flights to El Salvador continue while this case is being appealed?
We don't have any flights planned specifically, but we will continue with the mass deportations. And I would just like to point out that the judge in this case is essentially trying to say that the president doesn't have the executive authority to deport foreign terrorists from our American soil. That is
Crazy
an egregious
stuff,
abuse
boys.
of the bench. This judge does not have that authority. It is the opinion of this White House and of this administration, and that's why we're fighting this in court. And it's very, very clear that this is.
If you're just popping in, guys, welcome. We are watching the press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, brief everybody what's been going on today.
Campaign has continued. And this judge, Judge Boasberg, is a Democrat activist. He was appointed by Barack Obama. His wife has donated more than $10,000 to Democrats.
$10,000? That's a
consistently
lot.
shown his disdain for this president and his policies, and it's unacceptable.
You took me right where I wanted to go about the idea that these people are all foreign terrorists, but Judge Boasberg was originally appointed by George W. Bush and then elevated by Barack Obama. I just feel like I should clear that up.
Well, let me just say something to that effect, Garrett. 67% of all of the injunctions in this century have come against which president? Donald J. Trump. Let me say that again. 60% of the injunctions by partisan activists in the judicial branch have come against President Donald Trump, and 92% of those have been from Democrat-appointed judges. This is a clear, concerted effort by leftists who don't like this president and are trying to impose
she's not afraid to hit back.
Slow down his agenda.
So, given that,
I think Karoline's a really good press secretary, and she's only 27 years old. She's like the youngest press secretary in history.
67 votes you're unlikely to get.
And she's like just smoking these reporters.
The president has made it clear that he believes this judge in this case should be impeached, and he has also made it clear that he has great respect for the Chief Justice John Roberts, and it's incumbent upon the Supreme Court to rein in these activist judges. These partisan activists are undermining the judicial branch by doing so. We have co-equal branches of government for a reason, and the president feels very strongly about that. Jackie.
Thanks, Caroline. What options does the president have to, he says he's going to follow court orders. He wouldn't defy a court order, but he's raised these concerns about these judges acting in such a partisan way. What option does he have to ensure that his agenda continues to move forward while this is ongoing and the judges appear to be trying to just block and delay and impede?
Well, you're right. They are trying to block, delay, and impede. This is lawfare.
Judges need to stop.
Is no stranger to it. He faced it in his campaign, and this is a continuation of the lawfare that President Trump faced as a candidate.
If the president doesn't have like the capability of deporting criminals,
the judicial branch didn't get the memo
then what's
on
the
November
point?
5th, when the American people overwhelmingly reelected
like, what are we
this
doing
president
here?
to continue with mass deportations. So White House counsel and the Department of Justice are working on this. They're appealing these cases, and we will continue to use the full weight of the White House counsel's office and the president's team of lawyers to fight this in court, because we know we will win even if we have to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
One more on PDA. Andy McCarthy said in an interview with Hugh Hewitt, he certainly agrees with what the president is trying to do with the Alien Enemies Act, but he's not sure that the law is completely on his side.
I wasn't a fan of Kamala.
Supreme Court rulings dealing with enemy combatants in wartime. Says that
I honestly don't think Kamala wanted to even be president.
Their detention in court. He raised
I think she was glad that Trump won.
He has been designated as a terrorist organization.
It did not seem like she wanted the job.
Been prosecuted for terrorism. So my question is, will the president ask Congress potentially to declare war on these cartels for the invasion that he's talked about so that he's on stronger legal footing?
Well, we absolutely disagree with the legal opinion of the individual that you mentioned. We would not have moved forward with this if we didn't believe the president. This was within the president's executive authority to continue with this mass deportation effort under the authority provided to him under the Alien Enemies Act. And when you read the act, as I did last time at the podium, a predatory incursion is absolutely what has happened with Tren de Aragua. They have been sent here by the hostile Maduro regime in Venezuela. And the president, immediately upon taking office, designated TDA as a foreign terrorist organization. And under this act, it is within the president's authority to deport these terrorists. And anybody trying to defend these terrorists who have now been sent off of American soil should talk to the families of the individuals.
It's like this judge wants to bring back the terrorists, basically.
They are so heartened by
yet they're not doing anything about the people that are like torching Teslas and scratching them up
because President Trump
and going to Tesla dealerships
and he is deporting these foreign
and just lighting cars on fire. They're not doing anything about that. But they're concerned about the criminals we deported. They're like, bring them back. Like, that guy just lit a Tesla on fire. Ah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's so stupid.
What's the administration going to do about that?
I haven't seen that website, but we certainly think it's despicable, the violence that has taken place against Tesla, the company, its employees, and also just Americans who have chosen to drive an electric vehicle. Many of them are Democrats, by the way. Democrats were big supporters of Tesla and of electric vehicles until Elon Musk decided to vote for Donald Trump.
True.
So we would like Democrats to also come out and condemn this heinous violence that we have seen, and I believe the Attorney General has said she's investigating these incidents as acts of domestic terrorism. Jennifer.
On Ukraine, can you say, is the White House going to pause foreign military aid or intelligence sharing with Ukraine, as Russia says it's pushing for? And then have a follow-up on the Federal Trade Commission.
Sure. When it comes to Ukraine, I do have a statement for you from the National Security Advisor and also the Secretary of State. First, I'd like to reiterate what the President said earlier following his call with President Zelensky this morning. He said he just completed a very good telephone call with President Zelensky. It lasted approximately 1 hour. Much of the discussion was based on the call made yesterday with President Putin in order to align both Russia
Yeah,
and
yesterday
Ukraine
Trump talked
in
with
terms of their
Putin, and then I
requested
guess
needs.
today he talked
We are
with
very much on track. And I will ask Secretary of
the
State
President
Marco
of
Rubio
Ukraine.
and Mike Waltz to give an accurate description of the points discussed. That statement will be put out shortly. Well, I have that statement for you right here. Bear with me as I read it. Today, President Trump and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky had a fantastic phone conversation. President Zelensky thanked President Trump for a productive start for the work of the Ukrainian and American teams in Jeddah on March 11th. The meeting of the senior officials from both nations significantly
What do you guys
helped
think
in moving
about
toward
all the
ending
crazy
war.
people
President Zelensky thanked President Trump for the support of the United States,
deface
especially the
Tesla
Javelin
cars?
missiles that President Trump was
They've been like
first
lighting
to
them on
provide
fire.
in his efforts towards peace.
They've been like
The leaders
king
agreed
swastikas
Ukraine and
into
America will
them,
continue working together to
just
bring about a
vandalizing
real
them.
end to
What
the
do you guys
war,
think about that?
and that lasting peace under President Trump's leadership can be achieved. President Trump fully briefed President Zelensky on his conversation with Putin and the key issues discussed. They reviewed the situation in Kursk and agreed to share information closely between their defense staffs as the battlefield situation evolved. President Zelensky asked for additional air defense systems to protect his civilians, particularly Patriot missile systems, and President Trump agreed to work with him to find what was available, particularly in Europe. The two leaders also agreed on a partial ceasefire against energy. Technical teams will meet in Saudi Arabia in the coming days to discuss broadening the ceasefire to the Black Sea on the way to a full ceasefire.
I mean, I'm all
They
for
agreed this
peaceful
would be the first step
protests,
toward the
but
full end of the
when you
war
start
and
breaking
ensuring
things,
security.
it's not
President
peaceful anymore.
Zelensky was grateful for
When
the
you start
president's
lighting
leadership
stuff
in
on
this
fire,
effort and
throwing
reiterated his
Molotov
willingness to adopt
cocktails
a full ceasefire.
at cars,
President Trump also discussed
It's
Ukraine's
not-
electrical
it's not
supply
peaceful
and
anymore.
nuclear power plants. He said that the United States could be very helpful in running those plants with its electricity and utility expertise. American ownership of those plants would be the best protection for that infrastructure and support for Ukrainian energy infrastructure. President Zelensky also thanked President Trump for continuing to push humanitarian concerns, including the exchange of prisoners of war. He noted they had just had a successful exchange and thanked the president for his leadership on that. President Trump also asked President Zelensky about the children who had gone missing from Ukraine during the war, including the ones that had been abducted. And President Trump promised to work closely with both parties to help make sure those children were returned home. They agreed all parties must continue the effort to make a ceasefire work. The presidents noted the positive work of their advisors and representatives, especially Secretary Rubio, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Special Envoy Kellogg, and
so we're
others.
getting somewhere.
The presidents instructed
People are
their
starting to
teams
talk.
move ahead with the technical issues
Russia's
related
talking
to
with
implementing
Ukraine,
and
vice
broadening
versa.
the partial ceasefire.
We're getting
The
stuff
presidents
done.
instructed their advisors and representatives to carry out this work as quickly as possible. The presidents emphasized that in further meetings, the teams can agree on all necessary aspects of advancing toward lasting peace and security. That is a lengthy statement that was just given to me, so thanks for bearing with me. Our office will, of course, provide this after. And as you know, as I just pointed out in the statement, the president's team of negotiators and national security experts will be heading to Saudi again later this week to continue working on and ironing out the details. But I would just like to emphasize we have never been this close to peace, and it's only because of President Trump that we are here. I think a couple of years ago, as you all reported on the war, it was incomprehensible to have a partial ceasefire in this conflict. And today, that is true because of the leadership of this president.
So they
Mary.
agreed to closely share information between their defense staffs. Does that mean all intelligence sharing will continue? So the White House is rejecting Russia's request to pause that?
Intelligence sharing.
If you're just popping in, guys, we're watching the press secretary brief the press on what's been going on kind of in Ukraine and Russia, that whole situation.
So on the United States Institute of Peace, this is a little bit wild. I understand the old president refused to leave after he was removed from his position. He barricaded himself in his offices, had to be escorted out by police, left the building without Wi-Fi, telephones, elevators, and more, and is now telling media that Doge broke in and illegally removed him. So can you comment on this sequence of events and specify, did Doge illegally enter?
I'm really glad you brought this up, Mary. We were made aware of this story by individuals at Doge, at Elon Musk's team, and also at the State Department who were unable to access this building. And it became very clear that there was a concerted effort amongst the rogue bureaucrats at the United States Institute of Peace to actually physically barricade themselves essentially inside of the building to prevent political appointees of this administration who work at the direction of the President of the United States to get into the building. There was a piece in the Daily Caller, thank you for sharing the truth on this, about what happened. Staff contacted the MPD in an attempt to prevent Doge personnel from entering. They barricaded the doors. They also disabled telephone lines, internet connections, and other IT infrastructure within the building. They distributed flyers internally, encouraging each other to basically prevent these individuals from accessing the building. I use this to say this is what Doge and this administration is facing. It's a resistance from bureaucrats who don't want to see change in this city. President Trump was elected on an overwhelming mandate to seek change and implement change, and this is unacceptable behavior.
Thank you. And just really quick on the Supreme Court, I know it's been almost 3 years now since the leak of the draft Dobbs opinion to Politico, actually. A leak which sparked protesting outside the homes of the justices and even brought on one attempted assassination attempt. I know Justice Alito said that it made the justices targets for assassination, but yet the Supreme Court has not tracked down any leaker. Does the White House have interest in finding out who that leaker was, and can you comment on that at all?
I know generally speaking the president has an interest in finding leakers, and he believes it's unacceptable.
Gotta find the leakers, guys. Find them.
You've seen the Secretary
No
of
more
Homeland
leaking.
Security has taken tough action at her agency. Leaking is unacceptable to this president and to the leaders across the board in this cabinet, especially when it puts people in harm's way. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline. A mom whose daughter was forced to change in a locker room with a biological male at school filed a complaint with the DOJ. How will the Trump DOJ deal with violations of President Trump's orders protecting women and girls like this?
I would defer you to the Department of Justice on that specific case, but the president has made it incredibly clear that it is the policy of this administration that there are only two genders, male and female, only two sexes rather, male and female, and that we are not going to tolerate such behavior by men pretending to be women. The president will continue to strongly stand for the rights of women and girls, not just in sports and on athletic fields, but also in private spaces like locker rooms and bathrooms. Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you. On the FTC, two quick questions. Can you explain the president's thinking in his decision to fire the two Democratic commissioners, especially given that Mark Meadow is on track to be confirmed next week and there would be a Republican majority? My biggest question is why now?
Sure. Because the time was right to let these people go, and the president absolutely has the authority to do it. And they were given ample notice in a letter that I believe your outlet reported on. So it pretty much explains exactly why this administration chose to let those individuals go.
Is the ultimate goal to get this to the Supreme Court to try to overturn the 1935 precedent?
The goal was to let these individuals go. If we have to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court, we certainly will. Rachel.
Back to those deportations.
Take it to the Supreme Court. Let's
go. Can the administration provide any more details on how authorities determined that each of those men were in fact members of a gang? And if the White House can publish images, photos, videos of those men, why can't the administration just release basic information like their identities and names?
We are not going to reveal operational details about a counterterrorism operation, but what I can assure you, as I said on Monday, we have the highest degree of confidence in our ICE agents and our Customs and Border Patrol agents.
Do me a favor, guys, if you're enjoying the stream, hit that thumbs up button.
To targeting illegal criminals in our country, particularly foreign terrorists, and they had great evidence and indication. They have the highest degree of professionalism, and they were 100% confident in the individuals that were sent home on these flights and in the president's executive authority to do that.
To follow up, I know in the last briefing you cited privacy concerns as a reason why the administration may not be able to reveal the identities what exactly are the privacy rights of immigrants who were deported that the administration says were dangerous enough to be sent to El Salvador and sit in a prison?
Again, as I just said, we're not going to reveal the operational details of a counterterrorism operation for quite obvious reasons. We're trying to combat terrorism here in the United States of America. Jeff.
I could ask something else about the phone call yesterday. There was a couple different readouts from the Kremlin and the U.S. on a couple different points. One was energy and infrastructure. The U.S. statement said energy and infrastructure. The Kremlin said energy infrastructure. What is your understanding of what the actual substance of that disagreement was? Then I have one other question on that.
I would defer you to the readout that was provided by the White House. That's our understanding, and that's the truth.
And if I could ask a question about the judge as well. How does a president define a bad judge? Is it just someone who disagrees with
Thank you
him?
for the likes,
And how
guys. I
dangerous
appreciate it.
precedent in this case, because this is a temporary ruling from Judge Boasberg that he could ultimately rule in your favor. Is he setting up a standard here for calling for the impeachment of a judge who may ultimately rule on your side?
No, it has nothing to do with disagreeing with the president on policy. It's with disagreeing with the Constitution and the law. And it's trying to usurp the authority of the executive branch of this country. It's having baseless reasoning for these injunctions. And it's a clear effort by these judges to slow roll this president's agenda. And if you just look
not
at
gonna
the
work.
injunctions that this president has faced, deporting foreign terrorists from our homeland, hiring
Judges
and
just
firing
need to
of
let
executive
Trump
branch
do his
of,
job and stop getting in the
employees,
way.
which when the president is the executive of the executive branch. You also see an injunction by a partisan activist judge when it comes to the Secretary of Defense trying to determine the readiness of our troops and the qualifications of our troops in our armed forces. Does a single district court judge really have more authority over the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of Defense to determine who should serve in our United States Armed Forces? Absolutely not. Anyone who has taken a basic civics lesson can understand that, and it's ridiculous lawfare that we are witnessing.
The president said he supports. I'm sorry. The president said he respects the Chief Justice here. Does he respect him specifically on this case and this opinion, or respects him overall? And has he spoken to any other Supreme Court justices?
The president respects Chief Justice Roberts overall. He just expressed that to me in the Oval Office, but it's also quite clear that the Supreme Court needs to rein in these judges who are acting as partisan activists, and they are undermining the judicial branch. And it's
Let the president do his job.
Deanna, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
They're just butthurt that they lost the election.
Did they discuss the minerals deal at all? Is that back on the table, and what do the Ukrainians have to do to get that back on the table? And then one on the Russia call as well.
Again, I just provided a very lengthy readout of the call that was provided by the Secretary of State and the National Security Advisor. And now we have moved beyond the economic minerals deal. We are at a place of peace. We're at a partial ceasefire, and we're moving towards a full ceasefire and a long-standing peace in this conflict. And that's great news for the American public.
The Kremlin readout mentioned that Trump and Putin spoke about potential U.S.-Russia hockey games. And the Kremlin readout also said that Russia wanted the U.S. to stop U.S. intelligence and U.S. funding to Ukraine. The president has said that that conversation did not happen. Just wondering if you can get us any more clarity on that. And also, again, if it's energy infrastructure or if it's energy and infrastructure, because I think there is a big difference between that.
Again, as for the readouts of the call, I would defer you to ours. And when it comes to the topic of hockey, it did come up. However, we're more interested in securing a peace deal than scheduling hockey games right now.
His
Sean.
U.S. is going to face Russia in hockey.
So was
Winner
it the
takes
president
all.
himself who directed the plans to stay in Ukraine after the judge ordered them to turn back?
The president invoked the Aliens Enemies Act with a proclamation, which then directed the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of State to move forward with the plan of action. And as I said yesterday, all of the planes that were subject to the judge's written order took off before the order was submitted in court. I was asked and answered that question multiple times yesterday. Kate, go ahead.
Is the president still considering pressuring Russia with sanctions or tariffs to try to get a full ceasefire? And is there any kind of deadline or timeline that the White House has in mind for when that pressure might ramp up?
Again, the president had a nearly 2-hour-long call with President Putin yesterday. We provided a readout of that call, and we have his negotiating team heading to the Middle East this week to continue these discussions in regards to sanctions and any other details. I'm not going to give a readout of those from this podium.
And on TikTok, is Oracle the leading contender for a deal? And would the U.S. back a deal that keeps TikTok's algorithm and the underlying technology still in Chinese hands?
As President Trump does so well, we don't get ahead of ourselves when we are in the midst of an
Who's
art,
gonna buy
art of
TikTok?
the deal. So when the president and his team are ready to
Elon
announce
Musk
a deal on
should
TikTok,
just buy
which is
TikTok.
a high priority for the president, we will make that
And
known.
Elon
I've seen
owns
that reporting, but I'm
TikTok
not going
and,
to comment on it just yet.
and
Sure, go ahead.
Twitter.
Thank you, Press Secretary Leavitt. Some prominent Trump supporters have been making the case that Derek Chauvin deserves a pardon. They argue that he did not receive a fair trial. Joe Biden and other Democrats actually implied that he was guilty while the trial was going on. BLM rioters had these jurors under immense threat and pressure. Mainstream media, frankly, many news outlets here today are complicit here. They chose to ignore the autopsy report. They chose to ignore the full body camera footage. They decided to slander Derek Chauvin as a racist cop instead. Does the administration believe Derek Chauvin received a fair trial, and will they consider a pardon moving forward?
The president has been asked and answered this question. He said it's not something he's considering at this time. Philip.
Thank you. Two questions. First, just a follow-up on the readouts from those calls. When it comes to the discrepancies between the U.S. and Russian readout of that call between President Trump and Putin, is it the president's assessment that something is getting lost in translation, or does he believe that the Russians are trying to play games here?
Nope. The president believes in his team that put the readout out, and he also put his own out on Truth Social. We've been incredibly transparent about all of the president's calls with foreign leaders, and again, I would defer you to the readout.
And then following up
Michael.
on...
Thank you, Karoline. White House said yesterday that gas prices across the U.S. have fallen for the fourth straight week. 34 states now seeing gas under $3.
Gas prices are going down.
Ceasefire with Ukraine regarding oil refineries, energy. Will that affect gas prices here in the U.S.?
Well, it's certainly the president's hope that gas prices will continue to fall, and he's working every single day to ensure that we do. As you just mentioned, there's been very encouraging data. Inflation
I just
is
filled up my
cooling,
gas
and
tank.
prices
Still a little
are
bit
falling.
high,
The president
but it's
has
going
established
down.
a national energy
It's getting
dominance
cheaper,
council,
a little
and
bit
it's
cheaper.
ultimately the president's goal. And this administration is working hard on it every single day to increase our energy production right here in the United States of America, to have it Trump energy boom like we saw in our first term, which will not only lead to lower fuel prices here at home, but also lessen the rate of inflation that was created by the previous administration.
And one more on Tesla, Caroline. Tim Waltz, Governor Waltz, saying last night he frequently checks Tesla stock. In doing so, to quote, give me a little boost during the day. How
Tim
should
Walz
Americans
is a
view
moron.
politicians who take pride in the downfall of an American car company?
I think that's quite sad, but I think Governor Walz unfortunately is living a sad existence after his
In
devastating
India,
defeat
the
on
gas is just
November 5th.
going up every day.
Reagan.
That sucks.
Reagan, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. Across the country, Tesla cars
Are
being
you
lit on
from
fire,
India,
dealerships
man?
are being shot up, Molotov cocktails are being used. There was a website posted yesterday that shared the addresses of private Tesla owners and reportedly had Kash Patel's information on it. AG Bondi has called this acts of domestic terrorism. Does the White House have any
Nice.
indication that this is some sort of coordinated movement or that it's being funded by some outside group? And do you know if the investigation by the DOJ is being investigated as incidents of organized terror?
I believe the Attorney General has made her comments clear on that. She is investigating these events as acts of domestic terrorism, and we fully condemn them. And as I said
Yeah,
earlier
there's
to
videos
Jackie's
going
question,
all around
I
the
do think
internet
it's
of just
despicable
people,
what is
like,
happening to not just this
vandalizing
American company,
Teslas.
but also their innocent employees. And
Those
again,
people need to be
innocent
caught and
Americans who
thrown
drive
in
these
jail.
vehicles, and we condemn it wholeheartedly. Sure.
More than 24,000 workers at 18 agencies are in the process of being reinstated. What is your message to these workers, and can you assure them they won't be fired again as the administration directs agencies to do more layoffs?
Well, the administration is complying with the court's order. Again, as I have spoken about repeatedly, we think it's despicable that we have judges acting as judicial activists, partisan activists, trying to dictate who the President of the United States, the executive of the executive branch, can hire and fire. We have never seen anything like this. We are fighting this in court, and we will continue to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to. And as for federal employees, it's been the very common sense position of this president and the administration that bureaucrats here in Washington, D.C. need to show up to the office just like the rest of America. Middle-class Americans,
Show up to the
from
office.
doctors to business owners to
Show up.
teachers to law enforcement officers have to show up to their offices every single day. And the president has made it a clear priority that people in this city have to do the same. And we are also continue to be committed to reducing the scale of our workforce and to reducing the size of our federal bureaucracy here in Washington, D.C. to save taxpayers' money. Annie, go ahead.
Thanks so much. In the statement that you read, you referenced the president's interest in helping return Ukrainian children to their parents and to their families. There's an organization that provides intel and information about those children that their aid has been cut. It's a Yale University program that used foreign aid. And I'm curious if, as part of this new thinking with Ukraine, that aid might be unfrozen.
I have no updates about that or that specific program at this time. Karen.
Thanks, Caroline. Just to follow up on your answer to the question on the minerals deal, you said that the White House has moved beyond the minerals deal. What does that mean? Is that no longer on the table?
Nope. It means the minerals deal was that first set of framework that you all saw in that very public meeting with President Zelensky and President Trump in the Oval Office. We are now focused on a long-term peace agreement. As you know, on that deal or that meeting between President Zelensky and President Trump, the Ukrainian president at the time wasn't talking about a greater peace deal. We are now at that place where we are talking about that. So we've moved beyond just the economic minerals deal framework, and we're looking at a lasting ceasefire. Right now we're at a partial ceasefire, but again, the president is sending his highly skilled, intelligent, and experienced team to Saudi Arabia later this week to continue fighting for peace in this conflict. And I would just reiterate one more time, we have never been closer to peace than we are today. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you later.
And there you go, guys. That was the press briefing for March 19th, 2025. What else has the White House posted? Let's take a little peek here. What else do we got? Illegal aliens self-deport with the CBP home app.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that's not pleasant. The Biden administration exploited the CBP One app to allow more than 1 million aliens to illegally enter the United States. Now my administration is launching the CBP Home app to give people in our country illegally an easy way to leave now and self-deport voluntarily. If they do, they could potentially have the opportunity to return legally at some point in the future. But if they do not avail themselves of this opportunity, then they will be found, they will be deported, and they will never be admitted again to the United States, ever again. You're never coming in. Using the CBP Home app to leave the United States voluntarily is the safest option for illegal aliens and our law enforcement. It also saves the U.S. taxpayer dollars and valuable CBP and ICE resources, and all of those resources are necessary to focus on dangerous criminal aliens, and that's what we're focused on. The CBP Home app is now available free across all mobile app stores, and I encourage those who have
probably
violated
Fortnite,
our
man.
laws
I
to
play a lot of
use this
Fortnite on the
option
channel.
Today, do it
Play a lot
right
of
and
indie
come
games,
back
too.
into our country. Do it wrong, and you'll never be
RPGs.
back again.
First-person shooters, stuff like that. Thanks for popping in, man. I hope you subscribed. Let's go to type in news and see what pops up. What do we got here? Elon Musk sets record straight on SpaceX rescue mission. Ukraine airstrikes. Melissa Taylor, how's it going? All right, yeah, for sure, man. Have a good night, man. What else we got here? What else we got?
Spring is here, and so are the deals at Peterson Toyota. Lease a new 2025 RAV4, just $340.
I don't care. Let me refresh.
A few hours ago, I sat down with President Trump in the diplomatic room at the White House. We talked Doge, China, illegal immigration. He even told us what he sees for Barron's future. But we start tonight with the big news, his conversation with Vladimir Putin. Mr. President, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We got a readout of your call with Vladimir Putin, and it was a fairly optimistic take. Vladimir Putin agreed to a ceasefire immediately on energy and infrastructure, but not to a 30-day ceasefire. Tell us what happened.
Well, you have a situation where you have a lot of guns pointing at each other foolishly, because it would have never happened if I were president. That was not a war that was supposed to happen. And it did happen, so that's where we are. And right now, you have a lot of guns pointing at each other, and a ceasefire without going a little bit further would have been tough. Russia has the advantage, as you know. They have encircled about 2,500 soldiers. They are nicely encircled, and that's not good. And we want to get it over with. Look, we're doing this. There are no Americans involved. There could be if you end up in World War III over this, which is so ridiculous, but, you know, strange things happen. And I think we had a great call. It lasted almost 2 hours, talked about a lot of things, and toward getting it to peace. And we talked about other things also.
Was there non-negotiables mentioned by Putin? It was reported that, I think the Kremlin media actually stated that he demanded an immediate cessation of aid to Ukraine in order to get to this multi-step deal.
No, he didn't. We didn't talk about aid, actually. We didn't talk about aid at all. We talked about a lot of things, but aid was never discussed.
In the readout, it also stated that both sides want to get to an improved bilateral relationship, the United States and Russia.
That's a good thing,
true.
Right? That's
How
good.
can we trust that Vladimir Putin actually wants that, in that he's not also being influenced at the same time by his close friend, President Xi of China?
Well, look, we have our own discussions with President Xi of China, and he wants to get along also, and he's looking to get along, and we're looking to get along with him, and we will. We have a problem of trade where we have a very big imbalance with China. With Russia, we don't have that much trade, and they'd like to, and we'd like to also. They have some very valuable things for us, including very big forms of rare earth. They have a lot of earth. You know, they have a big chunk of real estate, the biggest, actually the biggest in the world for a country, by far. And on that, they have things that we could use, frankly, and that other people could use. I think that President Xi would like to get along, and I think Russia wants to get along with the United States. I also think we're a much different country than we were just a few months ago. We're a country that's now respected. We were not respected. We were being laughed at.
We're respected now,
leadership.
boys. America's
this was a war,
back.
as an example, that would have never
America's
happened if I
back.
were president.
Is part of your desire to forge this new relationship with Russia also impacted by Russia's closer relationship since you left office in 2021 with China? Because I think you talked about before the desire to box out China from that part of the world and have a closer relationship with Russia.
So as a student of history, which I am, and I've watched it all, the first thing you learn is you don't want Russia and China to get together. With that being said, no, it's not a big part of it, but maybe that'll happen or maybe it won't. Obama really forced them together through energy and bad energy policies. And when he did so many different things, he forced a marriage which would never have taken place. It was not a natural. And for one reason, Russia has tremendous land, a lot of land, and China doesn't have enough land. Russia has a much smaller population than China. And it's sort of a natural,
just
it was
popping
always
in,
a
guys.
natural
Welcome to the stream.
enemy
Glad you're here.
situation. They're
Grab some
probably
popcorn.
friendly now, but we're going to be friendly with both. I think we're going to be friendly with both. China needs us in terms of trade very badly, and but we have to straighten out the deficit. We have now more than $1 trillion deficit with China. It's not even believable.
It's a lot of money.
And we're going to be doing
That's
something
a lot
about
of
that.
dough.
And with Russia,
A lot
they
of
would
dough.
like to have some of our economic power.
The criticism that you've heard since really 2015 is that you have more in common with Vladimir Putin than you do with globalist leaders, maybe some NATO leaders, and in this case, with Zelensky. You're both nationalists. Zelensky's more of a globalist. How do you respond to that criticism?
Well, I am a nationalist, but I'm a nationalist for the United States, not for anybody else. And it's interesting because there's nobody been tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that pointed out Nord Stream 2, and I stopped it. Nord Stream's the biggest pipeline, I guess, in the world, taking care of all of Europe. And it was being built from before I got there. And somehow they were on the way. It was going to be, and I stopped it. It was just stone cold
Shut
dead.
it down. Shut it down, boys.
That's not somebody that's being particularly nice. It was the biggest project they ever had. I had it stopped. When Biden got in, he immediately approved it. Like, immediately. One of the first things he did in office was he
Thank you
approved
for the
Nord
likes,
Stream
guys.
2.
I appreciate it.
Nobody ever heard
We
of
get
Nord
10 likes
Stream
on this video.
until I
Smash
was
it.
president. I said, what are you doing? You mean you're building a pipeline to Germany and various places in Europe. You're paying them billions of dollars a month, and then we're paying a lot of money to fight them. This is not going to work out well. And it stopped, and then Biden approved it, which was a really stupid thing to do, but he did it. And Putin actually said to me, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as my enemy. He said that very strongly. But with all of that, I had a very good relationship with Putin. I had a very good relationship with President Xi, a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Lots of good relationships. And that's a positive thing. That's not a negative thing. But at the same time, I'm about our country. So that's why we're talking about tariffs. We'll be
Keep your
taking
friends
in
close,
trillions
keep your
of
enemies
dollars.
closer.
I want to get to the
You know what I'm
tariffs in a
saying?
minute
Okay.
because we're going to first hit the other big news of the day, which was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court issued what a rare statement about your suggestion on Truth that you posted earlier today that Judge James Boasberg should be impeached after he ordered those deportation flights to El Salvador halted, essentially turned around. The Chief Justice said it was more than two centuries. We understood that essentially impeachment was for very rare circumstances and not an appropriate response to rulings you disagree with. What's your reaction to the courts stepping in to make a statement here? They didn't make a statement when Joe Biden decided to forgive all those student loans.
Well, he didn't mention my name in the statement. I just saw it quickly. He didn't mention my name. Yeah. But many people have called for his impeachment, the impeachment of this judge. I don't know who the judge is, but he's radical left. He was Obama appointed. And he actually said we shouldn't be able to take criminals, killers, murderers, horrible, the worst people, gang members, gang leaders.
That's
that
crazy.
We shouldn't be allowed to take them out of our country. Well, that's a presidential job. That's not for a local judge to be making that determination. And I thought it was terrible. In fact, he said when they were well on their way, there was an order issued, as I understand it, to bring them back or to not let them go or something. And this is not something that the country would stand for. These people, they were let in here by an incompetent president who had open borders, and anybody throughout the world could come in. And we were given murderers. We were given people from mental institutions and prisons.
The judge is
lords.
essentially saying, excuse me, Mr. President, that there still is a process in place. You can read between the lines. It hasn't been a full ruling yet. And I know the Justice Department is appealing this on a couple of different grounds, but this is leading people to wonder whether there are court orders that you will defy because you believe that the judge has no jurisdiction or they're political questions and not justiciable at all. And what would you say to that? Are there circumstances where you would defy a court order?
Well, I think that, number one, nobody's been through more courts than I have. I think nobody knows the courts any better than I have. I would say the chief judge does, but nobody knows them better than I have. And what they've done to me, I've had the worst judges. I've had crooked judges. I have judges that valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million because that benefited his case, because he wanted to see me convicted of something. I have judges that had relatives making millions and millions of dollars on the election, ruling on the election.
But going forward,
I had judges
would
that
you
were
defy
so
a court
corrupt.
order? Because we all know that, and that was outrageous.
I never did defy a court order.
And you wouldn't in the future.
No, you can't do that. However, we have bad judges. We have very bad judges, and
get them out of here.
These are judges that shouldn't be
get
allowed.
Get them out of here.
I think at a certain point you have to start looking at what do you do when you have a rogue judge. The judge that we're talking about, you look at his other rulings. I mean, rulings unrelated, but having to do with me, he's a lunatic.
He wants details of when flights departed and trying to, I guess they seem to be trying to lay the predicate for your administration having defied a court order. Now, you all have said you haven't given specific times, and you filed a motion in court, your Justice Department, to prevent any more information getting out about specific times of flights. So that seems to be where this is going. Do you have faith that the Supreme Court ultimately
you guys are watching,
will
drop a
rule
comment in the comment section.
I do.
Also vote on that poll we got going.
The job
Chat.
of getting people out of our country that are murderers, that are absolutely the worst people, the drug lords are causing such problems in this country. You know, drug lords came in, the biggest of them. They left other countries to come in here. They came through an open border. They're making millions of dollars destroying people's lives, killing people. And that's a presidential thing. We're supposed to be getting them out or getting them brought to justice.
Get them out of here.
We had a judge, I would call him a rogue judge. You can call him whatever you want. I know nothing about him. I heard about this very late in the process, and I said, that's a strange order. You have local judges, local federal judges, period, and DAs and prosecutors, DAs, state attorney generals that want to really take over. I think some of it's for the publicity. They love the publicity. All of a sudden, they're on the front page of every newspaper, but they have no right to be.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, guys, it's getting pretty late, so I better wrap up this stream. It's 11:25 p.m. my time, so it's almost midnight. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you really want to help support the channel, hit the join button down there. A shout out to all the people that are scrolling right below my face. All those names right there. Those are all people that hit the join button. I appreciate you guys. You're helping keep the lights on and my internet going so I can do these live streams. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for liking. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for subscribing. Until next time, my name is Adam. And remember, keep calm and game on. Doodles!